Uh, Salam alaikum, colleagues. Very good morning to all participants who joined us today. Let's start the meeting. I see that the Kyrgyz delegation are also joining. Yeah. Thank you very much for finding time to join the second part of the webinar on effective public service delivery and e-governance. I believe most of the participants, particularly from the Kyrgyz Republic and Tajikistan, they joined the first part, which was very useful and very interesting. During the first webinar, we learned a lot about various dimensions of effective public service delivery based on ASAN service model. In particular, we learned about integrated service management aspects, supporting SMEs, and some regional dimensions of public service delivery and e-governance. And today we'll continue our discussion, and there are a number of very interesting and very important presentations. Again, from our colleagues in SAPSI, as well as from the colleagues from the ISDB. And we also, during this session, which is more of technical nature, will discuss country perspectives, right? Let me start with giving floor to our esteemed speakers, for welcoming remarks. Allow me to start with Mr. Amir Bukvich. He's acting Chief Products and Partnership Officer at the Islamic Development Bank. Just briefly introduce Mr. Amir. He leads the bank's product organization and strategic direction in the areas of partnerships, public financing, private financing, co-financing, and knowledge products. He built upon the existing relationships with major development partners such as Arab Coordination Group, multilateral development banks, UN system, and private sector partners, and seeks to establish new alliances with private and public entities to support the bank's contribution to the sustainable development goals. Mr. Amir leads the development of new resource mobilization mechanisms built into the ISDB products and mainstreams product engagement process. Mr. Amir guides the CPO, Chief Products and Partnerships Office Directorate, to become a knowledge-based function for global practices areas, and building the knowledge expertise in key sectoral areas, ensuring effective delivery of operational activities. Mr. Amir joined ISDB Group as a young professional, and before taking out the role of Deputy CEO of BBI in Bosnia in 2004, and then as the CEO of BBI in 2006. Mr. Amir, over to you, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aminov. Esteemed speakers, dear guests and colleagues, I would like to warmly welcome our distinguished country representatives from the Kyrgyz Republic and the Republic of Tajikistan. Valuable speakers from the State Agency for Public Services and Social Innovations under the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, the Karek Institute, and the Asian Development Bank, and participants from the Islamic Development Bank as well as our partners for joining today's event. Dear colleagues, as you know, last week we inaugurated this important initiative on digital development and e-governance with a webinar on effective public service delivery and e-governance. During that event, our partners from the Karek Institute and the Asian Development Bank gave us snapshot of the regional picture with respect to the state of digitalization in CIS countries, as well as the countries in the CAREC region, and shared with us important perspectives on the important role that digitalization can play in boosting socio-economic development. During today's event, we will continue to benefit from the expertise and the experience of the Republic of Azerbaijan through ASAN Zigma service, this time focusing on the various e-government solutions with a particular focus on startup ecosystems. We will also spend time looking into the opportunities and challenges on digitalization and public service delivery in two of our member countries, namely the Kyrgyz Republic and the Republic of Tajikistan. These sessions will be followed by an action-oriented discussion on what the ISDB can do to support these countries in particular, and the countries in the region in general, in order to boost their capacities and capabilities to deliver digital e-government solutions and support to small and medium enterprises. The central idea during today's discussion is to benefit from the bank's decades-long experience in promoting South-South and triangular cooperation in our member countries. Since our inception, the bank has been supporting solidarity-based cooperation arrangements in which countries with expertise and development solutions work hand in hand with other member countries to contribute to their development journey while enhancing long-lasting partnerships. We believe in this model of doing business, particularly with respect to developing capacities, because we believe in the capabilities that exist in our member countries. We know from our practical experiences that all of our member countries, regardless of their level of development, have solutions, resources, and expertise in many sectors, and they are willing to share these invaluable resources with others for the mutual benefit. After today's program, our aim as the Islamic Development Bank is to keep this engagement moving forward and make sure it flourishes to provide critical benefits in digitalization and ICT sectors. If there is a major lesson to be learned from the ongoing pandemic, we know that development efforts cannot continue with efficiency and effectiveness without closing the digital divide. For this reason, during this partnership, we will benefit from Azerbaijan's proven expertise in digitalization e-governance. We know that through this process, we will also facilitate the development of new resource centers in the countries of the region, as well as beyond, and make the important strides that we need for full digitalization and connectivity in our member countries. With these thoughts, I welcome you once again to this event and look forward to beneficial and fruitful discussions and the benefit for all of us, ISDB and our member countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amer, for a very comprehensive recap of our last discussion during the last webinar, and valuable guidance on the way forward. All these points are well noted. Let me now give the floor to Mr. Abdul Aliyev. He is the head of International Relations Department of the State Agency for Public Service and Social Innovations under the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan. Like this agency, like we also call the SAPSI, right, is in charge of running the ASAN service. Mr. Aliyev received his bachelor's and master's degrees from Baku State University. Then later in 2015, he received his second master's degree in international economics and political studies. from the Charles University in Czech Republic. Since 2016, Mr. Aliyev had been working at the State Agency for Public Service and Social Innovations. And from 2016 to 2018, he served as a director of Gabala Regional Asan Service Center. If you recall, last time we discussed like 21 resource centers of Asan across Azerbaijan. In 2018, Mr. Aliyev was appointed as the head of the International Relations Department of the State Agency. Mr. Aliyev, over to you, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aminov. Dear brothers, honorable speakers, distinguished audience, ladies and gentlemen. So, good morning. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Mr. Bukevich, for your kind and valuable remarks. I would like to refer to last week's webinar and express gratitude to ISTB, ADB, and Kyrgyz Institute for such a unique platform to share our experience, ideas, and insights. During the last webinar, speeches were made on the diverse themes around the main topic of effective public service delivery and governance, the case of Azerbaijan. On our side, each of our panelists was pleased and honored to address the audience in such an event, and we enthusiastically listened to all the other speeches. I hope this event also will be useful and fruitful for one of the distinguished audience. We try to primarily focus on Asan service model and explain what makes this model an exemplary one. Within the last 9 years of its operations, this model has proved to be successful and different dimensions. The very first measure of its successes is certainly citizen satisfaction. Above 90% satisfaction of our citizens prove that we are moving towards the right direction and encourages us to strive for better. This concept is also successful as a model of anti-corruption and creating a chance to pay the fees only through bank and removing the middleman among the citizens and the public services provider makes this concept an example of good governance methods. Therefore, Asan Service was a winner of UN Public Service Award in 2015 among more 800 candidates. Moreover, the idea of public-private partnership is also a crucial part of our model. Apart from that, we are always trying to cooperate with the private innovation companies, startups, in order to improve our methodologies and means. Today, my colleagues will mention multiple key projects of us, including 2019 UN Special Award winning MyGov portal project. MyGov project is our method of moving from reactive services to proactive services once and fostering the development of e-services in Azerbaijan. I would like to once again mention that both of our concepts in person and delivery of the services have gained attention beyond the borders of Azerbaijan. There have been numerous applications to us regarding the implementation of the model in foreign countries. And we have started the processes and consultations at those countries. We are ready to share our best practice with the CIC countries, especially with our friendly brothers, Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, and the other ones wanting to cooperate it. We deeply believe that together with ISTB, we will be able to implement noteworthy projects in the member countries. Furthermore, we are excited to hear the perspective of our friends from Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan on the theme of public service in Tajikistan in the Kyrgyz Republic, a closer look at opportunities and challenges. We are deeply interested to learn more about the current circumstances of public services in those countries and their vision for the future development. Ultimately, we will be hearing about ISDB's technical cooperation program and the reverse linkage policy, which are fundamentally important in driving the development of the member countries in the relevant sectors and accelerating their improvements. I would like once again express our sincere gratitude to our stakeholders of this noteworthy event. Such webinars are crucial in the improvement of this particular sector of the member countries. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Aliyev, for a very inspiring speech. And I really appreciate your cooperation, your personal support of this South-South cooperation, as well as like excellent support of your team, of the subsea team. And as we mentioned last time, the subsea is really a champion of South cooperation, right? Based on their like demonstrated experience of cooperating with a number of other member countries of the ISDB and beyond. Now, let me introduce Dr. Iskandar Abdullayev, Deputy Director of Karek Institute. Like in this endeavor, as you know, we are working very closely with a number of trusted partners, including the Karek Institute. So Dr. Abdullayev holds master's and PhD degrees from Tashkent Institute of Irrigation and Agriculture Mechanization. Dr. Abdullayev has over 25 years of experience in water management, water institutions, environmental activities in Afghanistan and 5 Central Asian countries. Dr. Abdullayev joined Karek as a deputy director in June 2019, and he's very well linked with research and scientific societies of the region and worldwide. He's the member of International Water Resource Association and member of editorial boards of several internationally peer-reviewed journals. Dr. Abdullayev is the author of 3 monographic books, over 30 peer-reviewed articles, policy papers, and presented more than 150 conference papers. He's been a regular guest and keynote speaker at many international conferences, such as annual World Water Weeks, World Water Forums. Dr. Abdullayev, please, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aminov, for great introduction. Assalamu alaikum, colleagues. First of all, let me thank Islamic Development Bank, our partners from government of Azerbaijan, Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan for this workshop and engaging in this good discussion. Our institute, Karek Institute, recently started with support from Islamic Development Bank study to sphere of digitalization in Karek region. We all know that this so-called fourth industrial revolution brought advanced digitalization into the global economy. It increased access to information and connectivity. And I have to underline that this revolution plays a crucial role in achieving the sustainable development goals and other international recognized obligations of our member countries. However, we would like to give attention that 50% of the world's population remain unconnected, posing a danger of groups being left behind. This gap between and within countries need to be addressed to ensure equitable gains from digitalization. I think one of the aims of this workshop is the same. The importance of this endeavor was made apparent. The United Nations designated access to internet and information communication technologies as targets such as SDGs 9S in 2015. Among other regions, our region, Central Asian region, countries also needs to harness the commitment of digital transformation by reducing the digital divide gap. Currently, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic, we all have witnessed that reiterating importance of digital economy and connectivity. And it entails the examination of challenges and impeding factors to provide sound data-driven, research-based policies to shorten digital gap. The digitalization of the economy and the building of digital economy are closely related to establishment of stable and secure digital infrastructure. Since without a constant and secure digital infrastructure as rule, no digitalization of economy is possible. For example, the use of ICT in the economic relations and production of digital products based on digital technologies are core fundamentals of this phenomenon, including improved access to government services. The rapidly developing Internet of Things, 5G technologies, big data, cloud computing, robotization, cybersecurity, and introduction of artificial intelligence all over the world requires construction and updating of the corresponding backbone of infrastructure to realize all these activities. However, I think the good example from ASAN services, which we had in the workshop number 1, also shows there is also very good practices which helps to improve access to government services and ease the access to information, improve also social services provided by government are good and illustrative examples. I'm sure more widespread dissemination of such good practices, exchange of policies which enable such success, and also technologies which should be applied and used widely in our region are good illustration. Therefore, I think this workshop series organized by Islamic Development Bank, and also we are very proud that we're also joining hands. And afterwards, all this information will be available in our e-learning platform, which is widely now recognized by CAREC member countries as good platform for knowledge exchange, will further disseminate such practices. And I think the governments are very much interested to have such policies and also such services available for their citizens, not because only of improving the access to government services, but also, as I started in the beginning, to close this digital gap, because digital gap is not only among countries, but also among communities, among people who are best related to and also have access to internet and people who are not. So I think today's discussions will help to ensure that these practices are disseminated, especially is among CAREC member countries. And CAREC Institute, jointly with our partners from ICDB and ADB, will continue our efforts to research on such areas. How best policies are available, how it can be applied, how new technologies are available, and how it can be applied in our member countries. All in all, I think we are all interested in these difficult times to reduce gap between our communities and people. And moreover, also if knowledge is available within our region, easily accessible, we will always play a role of a good platform to disseminate such good knowledge and also expertise. I would like to again thank our partners to organizing this. My special thanks goes to the government of Azerbaijan to readily sharing such knowledge and experience. And of course, best wishes to Islamic Development Bank on its efforts to improve digitalization in our region and bring all expertise together to improve our livelihoods and go out from these very difficult times of COVID-19. Thank you very much and looking forward for good discussion, and our partners from colleagues from CAREC Institute always stays ready to work with you together. Thank you very much once more.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdullayev, for an excellent speech, and in fact, it's a perfect introduction to the next session, which is Azerbaijan's, which is on Azerbaijan's smart solutions in the era of innovations, and in terms of development of e-government system and startup ecosystem. So you highlighted all key points that we want to discuss, highlight during this session. I mean, in terms of the way forward, like as you mentioned, digital technology is right now it's the most fundamental driver of change, right? Like in these days, it reshapes economies, it reshapes the way how the government and even the civil society works and how they interact with each other, right? So in that sense, we need to embrace to the opportunities that it provides, and basically and benefit from it in order to to solve some of the issues that we face in terms of economic development, reducing the Great Divide, or like the Great Digital Divide, right? As you mentioned, I mean, and using digital technologies, like including e-governance, is very important, even in terms of achieving sustainable development goals, right? So in terms of giving access to public services, social services, and bringing economic development through by supporting entrepreneurship and bringing in innovation. So in the next session, colleagues from the SAPSI will discuss in great detail all these points. Allow me to give to present Mr. To introduce Mr. Sultan Bayramov. He's Deputy Director of eGov Development Center of Azerbaijan. Mr. Bayramov is an accomplished business development professional with a track record in managing business activities in B2C and B2B environments. He's experienced in a diverse range of business fields, primarily within innovations management, telecoms, and business consultancy. Mr. Bayramov has proven ability to combine strategic business and project management skills. His primary specialties include, but are not limited to, the capacity building, innovation management, and partnerships, corporate strategy development, and product management. From October 2021, Mr. Bayramov is a Deputy Director of eGov Development Center, which is a non-stop shop model of public services. It is a coordinating public body which manages and operates the electronic government and digital services provided by ministries via through a eGov portal, and ensures integration and effective management of public information resources and systems, ensures the data flow among state entities, applies machine learning, deep learning, artificial intelligence in the field of provision public services, as well as promotion digital public service among the population. It's a very impressive background. Mr. Bayramov, please, over to you. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Mr. Aminov. Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be with you today. With your permission, I'll try to share the presentation which we've prepared for this particular event. Please confirm whether you can see the presentation on the screen. Is it visible to everyone?
Yes, yes, Mr. Bayram.
Excellent. So with your permission, I will start. Before going into the deep details on what is the current situation in Azerbaijan in terms of digitizing the public services and what are the next steps, what is the vision, I would like to briefly explain on what is actually the e-government and what are the core components of this e-government, digital government ecosystem. The big majority of the people think of the e-service portals when we say the e-government. They think that's all. The e-service portal is all about the e-government. But actually there are, we've highlighted 12 different components of digital government ecosystem. First of all, it's the normative legal basis. As we know, in the big majority of the countries, the legislation is normally behind the digitalization, which is the case in Azerbaijan as well. And in the following slides, I will try to explain to you the sandbox model that we apply in Azerbaijan, that we prepare the MVPs. And once the MVPs are ready, we can prove to the government, we can justify to the government the updates on the legal basis. Then it's basically about the service portals, it's about the digital identification, it's about the network infrastructure, data management, open data, the data center, obviously, the third parties, shared services, digital inclusion, digital literacy and digital divide, which I've heard a few times, this phrase from the previous speakers. And of course, the e-participation of citizens. So bringing this all together takes us to the core components of the digital government ecosystem. Now, shortlisting it to Azerbaijan, coming back to Azerbaijan, the population of Azerbaijan is 10 million. If we shortlist the population from the age of 18 to 45, it's 4.3 million. So 42% of the population we can call as the core target audience for the usage of digital government services. And we have developed the eGov single sign-on system called Asan Login. And at the moment, 2.2 million of Azerbaijani citizens have successfully registered on this system. So out of the 4.3 million target audience, we've already covered 51%. If we shortlist this target audience further to the social media users, it's 3.5 million in Azerbaijan. So 3.5 million active internet users, active mobile internet users. Out of them, 2.2 million are already on the digital government single sign-on system. Of course, we cannot limit ourselves with this achievement, so there is another 49% to cover in the following years. Now, the one-stop shop model, the physical public services model, Asan service centers, they have been available for the usage of citizens since 2013, and we've already covered this topic, the one-stop shop model. Now we are moving from one-stop shop model to non-stop shop model. So from physical public services to non-stop 24/7 digital public services, no matter of the time, no matter of the location, the citizens can easily access and use these services. And from this transformation period, our next target, which we've divided it, as you can see from the slide, to G1, G2, and G3. So the G3, for our target, our strategic priorities for the G3 period is the next generation of public services, more involvement of big data analytics, more implementation of artificial intelligence, and more development of in-house national IT products. So the less usage of foreign products, foreign solutions, the more usage of in-house Azerbaijani-made IT products. So these are the core targets for the next 3 to 5 years. You're already familiar with the one-stop shop model. My colleagues have already covered this part. So we have Asan service for 9 years. All of the government entities, including some businesses and private organizations, are offering their services in Asan. Asan does not provide any service on itself. Asan sets the standards, and Asan deals with monitoring and evaluation and coordinates the entire process. But the service is actually delivered by the employees, by the staff members of the relevant government and private organizations. So our model is very similar to Asan, but it happens not in physical form, it happens in virtual form, in digital form. So in Azerbaijan, all of the government entities, they are the owners of the data that they generate. So we do not have the generic database that contains the data generated by all of the government organizations. No, we've only developed the electronic information exchange system called Asan Bridge that is in charge of transferring data from one organization to another. So I will just briefly explain how it happens. Let's say if the government organization A would like to receive data from government organization B, they don't have to communicate with each other. They communicate with the SAPSI and e-Government Development Center. We identify their needs. We assess whether they have the legal right to obtain this data. And once we approve, we enable the transfer of this data through the Asan Bridge system. So this is how this process happens. Why we do this? In order to make this process efficient, reduce time, and make sure that this data flow, the data exchange is conducted within the standards that are set by us. Of course, within this process, we also come up with lots of products and services targeted to citizens, G2C, targeted to other government entities, G2G, as well as the business entities, G2B. And in the following slides, I will bring some examples from the most successful products and services that we have in portfolio. So if we shortly talk about the core functions of the e-government development center in Azerbaijan, first of all, it's about the products and services development. Second, it's the coordination with government entities. And third, together with SAPSI, monitoring and evaluation. So the raw material for our business, let's say it like that, is data. So before we started, we've developed a data catalog of live events. We call it the data roadmap from the birth until the death. Even there are some operations that occur after the death. So we formed this catalog in order to find out how many personal unique data actually are available in Azerbaijan that are generated by different government organizations. So the rough figure is 1,500. So 1,500 unique personal data generated by different government organizations from life to death in Azerbaijan. And secondly, we've identified who are the generators of this data. And in this sense, developed a catalog of this data, including by highlighting and the registry of this data. Why? Because, for example, if my name and surname as the data is generated by the Ministry of Justice, then when I apply to the service for another ministry, they don't have to request this information again. So no need to request a duplicate information from the citizen again. By having the necessary integrations, all of my personal data is linked to my personal identification number, PIN number. By using my PIN number, they can obtain all the necessary credible and updated information about me without requesting the same information from me again. So this is the core purpose of creating this registry. And yeah, we're in the previous slide, I have mentioned the monitoring and evaluation. There is a project called Asan Index, Evaluation of Public Services, which includes the 3 core steps: data collection, evaluation, and reporting of outcomes. So in Azerbaijan, at the end of the year, on behalf of the SAPSI, we share the report on evaluation of public services. We rank them from 1 to 5, and we publicly share this information. We also share this information with the head of state, obviously. And this report somehow creates a challenge among the organizations to do better in order to not to be at the bottom of the list. So this is the core value that this Asan Index brings to this process. And at the same time, we also evaluate the information systems of government organizations. We come up with the reports on the outcomes. We share these reports with the respective government organizations, so they would have a clear idea about their strengths and weaknesses. So they would take the necessary steps to eliminate those weaknesses until the next audit the next year. Yeah, as I mentioned, within this process, we developed lots of products and services targeted to citizens, businesses, and governments. These are the most important of them. In the following slides, I will give you information, more detailed information about some of them. First of all, I'd like to start with Assam Bridge. Assam Bridge is the standardized and centralized digital government data exchange system. In-house product made in Azerbaijan, made by the e-government development center's staff members. Before having this system, we used to utilize the Estonian X-Road, famous X-Road system. But in 2019, we made the strategic decision on switching to the in-house product and started developing the Assam Bridge system. Already successfully completed the integration of 30 government institutions. And we have the integration work continuing with further 14 government institutions. This is shortly about Assam Bridge system. egov.az is the old-fashioned reactive portal, reactive e-services portal. And the e-government development center is the operator of this portal since 2018. It contains 434 e-services that are provided by different government organizations. To be precise, 37 government organizations. And it has 1.2 million users. And those 1.2 million users have used the services of this portal 197 million times during 2020. Assam Login, as I mentioned, is the single sign-on system developed by us. It's the central authentication and authorization system. Why we created this system? Because there are different independent e-services portals offered by different government organizations. So accessing the personal cabinet in each of them, having different usernames, different passwords is not easy to remember, is not user-friendly for the users. So in order to eliminate this problem, we developed this system. For the moment, the big majority of the e-services portals have the Assam login system in front. So the same username, same password, we can access it with the e-signature as well. So the same username, same password for all of the different government e-services portals. And within the process of product development, initially, actually, we were linking this, all of the accounts to the personal phone number, mobile phone number of the users. Like if you get registered, at the back, the system would check whether this phone number belongs to this person through the personal identification number and sending the OTP to the number. And that's how the registration process was happening. But then we received a lot of feedbacks from the citizens saying that it's very difficult for the people to get registered on the system. Those people who do not own the personal mobile number or the ones that are using the corporate mobile numbers. As you know, the corporate mobile number is registered on behalf of your organization. There is no personal registration. So those people were not happy with the registration process by saying, okay, if I don't have a personal phone number, I'm not able to access this system. So what do you offer? What alternative do you offer? Yes, we accepted this feedback and we've developed the artificial intelligence guided video registration. So it's the process that happens within the 10 seconds. The person has to show the identification card onto the screen, answer to the random questions. As we know, there is a deep fake solution available, which is duplicating the face of people in video format. In order to avoid that, we ask them random questions. So they answer to these questions and the entire process is recorded. And at the back, the AI checks whether the face image in the video does match the photo that is available on the identification card. If the match is above 80%, then the person can successfully get registered. If it is below 80% for some reason, then the system automatically forwards it to the physical operator, to the human being, to make further cross checks, maybe contact the person or maybe invite him to the eGov corner in the ASAN service centers, and then after making sure that it's the same person, then complete the registration process. So this introduction of this feature has helped us a lot to involve a lot more people, and we've nearly doubled the number of registrants on ASAN login system, which is 2.2 million at the moment. Sorry. So MyGov portal is the digital government portal based on personal cabinet. Why we've developed MyGov portal? Because previously you've seen the eGov portal. Now we have the MyGov portal. Many people ask why we have two of them. What is the purpose? So, as I mentioned, egov.az is the old-fashioned e-services portal where people identified the need to use the e-service, they access the portal and they get the service. But in MyGov, we proactively notify them about the change on their life events. Like, for example, we notify them in advance about the expiration date of their ID cards, their passports. We notify them in advance about not paid fees, penalties in advance. We notify them in advance about the eligibility to apply for pension. So all of these proactive notifications are the core value that we brought to MyGov. And another value is the digital portfolio containing real-time personal data. So all of the physical documents that we have at home, like passports, ID card, the employment letter, and everything else, all of this information, all of this data are available in digital form within your MyGov mobile app. So you don't have to contain all of the physical paper documents with you when you apply to certain services. You can only you can simply give the permission to the relevant government organization or to the private organization, let's say the bank. So they would access with your permission, they would access your personal information. So no need for old-fashioned paper documents or photocopying it or putting it into the shelf, archiving it. Those things are getting gradually eliminated. Yeah, we also conduct different surveys related to MyGov application to make sure that we have the necessary feedback for improvement from the citizens. Can you see the changes in the slides that I'm making, Mr. Aminov? Can you please?
Yes, Mr. Bayram.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, and we publicly share all of the outcomes of these surveys. So it's publicly available, no matter of the results, we publicly share. So any person in Azerbaijan or any international expert can easily access digital.gov.az, which is our official webpage, and check the outcomes of the surveys that we conduct on regular basis. So ASAN payment system is another system. I'll shortly talk about this. Before, when there was a traffic fine, the information about the traffic fine used to be sent to the citizen's home in the physical letter form. So it was creating lots of problems because some of the people do not live in the address where they are registered. So the address of registration, the actual address was different for some of the people. So not receiving this letter was creating lots of problems, miscommunications between the government and the citizen, lots of complaints. So by introducing the ASAN payment system, we've actually electronized this. We simply send this information to the personal cabinet of the citizen. We send out the SMS notification to the person. And in the personal cabinet of asanpay.az, the person can actually see the images, the video recordings on when it happened, where it happened. And if the person does not agree with this decision, he can simply click and complain, send his or her complaint online. So this is the core value. And at the moment, we are working on diversifying the payment options of Asan payment system, so people do not remember it only when they are fined. So they do not associate it with negative things, but they can also use it in all other life events like paying your utility bills, paying your mobile phone bills, etc., etc. So we are at the stage of diversifying payment options on this system. So these are the statistics about Asan payments. We have the Asan payment physical terminals available as well in the shopping malls, in the buildings of different government agencies. So the people who are not able to pay online, they can actually make physical payments through the Asan payment terminals. Asan Finance is another interesting project. It covers all of the banks in Azerbaijan and the big majority of the insurance companies in Azerbaijan. As I mentioned before, when they serve to the client, they don't have to request any physical documents. The person simply introduces his or her personal identification number and all of the relevant data with the written permission of the citizen, because we respect the GDPR rules and we pay strong attention to this point. With the written permission of the citizen, the bank or insurance company can obtain all the necessary information related to the ID number, related to the workplace information, salary information, pensions information, and all the other relevant data that is required for the bank to identify the person, to evaluate, and to make a decision. So Asan Finance was launched back in 2019, and within the, I would say, short period of 2 years, we have already covered all of the banks in Azerbaijan. All of the banks are integrated to Asan Finance system. Asan Visa, I'm sure you're already familiar with the system. So applying visa to Azerbaijan for foreigners was a little bit complicated before. It was taking up to 15 days to get back the answer for the application. The application used to be in physical paper form by physically bringing the documents, by physically submitting the documents. And since 2017, we've eliminated all of these processes. We've introduced the e-visa. Person can access the webpage evisa.gov.az from anywhere in the world. Simply fill in the online application form, pay online, and receive the e-visa within 3 hours or 3 days, depending on the preference. Of course, the 3 hours one, the urgent visa, is slightly expensive than the standard e-visa type. And they receive the e-visa to their emails in the PDF format. And the foreign citizens even do not have to print this out. You can simply show the PDF when you arrive to Azerbaijan, and the QR code scanner will check the credibility of this visa, and they will let you in from the borders. So very simple, and it has also helped Azerbaijan. It also supported Azerbaijan to develop the tourism sector. It was because obtaining visa is one of the bureaucratic obstacles when you plan to travel to a certain country. But by the introduction of e-visa, we have simplified this process. So when any person that wishes to travel to Azerbaijan, he or she already knows that visa is not the obstacle anymore. It's very simple and straightforward process. By introducing the machine learning, we are also analyzing the surveys that we are sending out to the citizens that have obtained visas. And out of these surveys, out of the comments that the foreign citizens put in the comment box, we've came up with the sentiment analysis. Keywords on the green keywords on this list are the positive comments of foreign citizens about Azerbaijan. The red keywords are the negative ones, unfortunately, that they mentioned about Azerbaijan. As you can see, mainly they are happy with the people, happy with the food, happy with these hotels, and happy with the capital, but unhappy with the taxi services, unhappy with the drivers, somehow unhappy with the airports, and unhappy with the language options of the driver. So it clearly shows our strengths and weaknesses in the tourism sector. And of course, we share these reports with the relevant government organizations, including the State Tourism Agency. They also use these reports for their own internal evaluations. Yeah, and finally, this is the project that will be launched next week. It's the portal that will support the regional e-government development in Azerbaijan. So it's the Good Governance program. We've developed a portal, rah.gov.az. It's the XCOM services will be available online starting from the next week. So people in the regions of Azerbaijan will not have to physically walk into the XCOM to apply for certain services. We digitize the big majority of them. But of course, this is only the first part of the process. The second and the most challenging part is to make sure that people in the regions have the necessary digital literacy level in order to apply to these services online. And for this purpose, we are planning a big regional promotion campaigns and capacity building campaigns in the regions of Azerbaijan, so the people will have the necessary skills to apply to these services. Yes, the rest are the COVID-19 related activities, which I don't want to consume too much of your time, because I think I've already exceeded my time limit. I thank you for your attention, Mr. Aminov, and the rest.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Bayramov, for a very comprehensive overview of various e-governance initiatives that you are pioneering. I mean, I believe all our participants found it very interesting and very useful. In particular, I really liked that you emphasized on the importance of data and how data is generated and, you know, like shared across the platform, right? I mean, this is very important and relevant, like for both of our participating countries. Like as we know, like the many ministries, like with their own databases, right? And in some instances, you have hundreds of different databases. So I mean, like in terms of complexity, in terms of like their sophistication, they vary, right? And synchronizing and combining this data is quite a challenge. So in that sense, you know, in our subsequent sessions, as we have participants from various ministries and agencies of the government of Tajikistan and Kyrgyz Republic, we can discuss all these issues in greater detail. And we will have a very short Q&A, and the format of this meeting is more like this is a webinar, but participants can ask a question. Please go ahead if you have any question or any comment. But just for the sake of time, let's hear our second speaker. Like, his presentation is also very interesting and very relevant. Let me present Mr. Aga Hussein Ahmadov. He's the program coordinator of 500 Global, which helps entrepreneurs and startups to unlock their potential and scale up. And Mr. Agha Hussein, prior to 500 Startups, served as an advisor to the CEO of Innovation Center at the State Agency of Public Service and Social Innovations, the SAPSI, helping the organization to transform its structure and build its innovation agenda. Mr. Agha Hussein led the research work for Azerbaijan at Ernst & Young Baltics, advising them on designing support mechanisms for entrepreneurial ecosystems in Eastern Partnership countries. Mr. Agha Hussein also served as a regional manager at SeedStars, where he created, implemented, and scaled some global initiatives across Central and Eastern Europe, Caucasus, and Central Asia, raising awareness around entrepreneurship, providing tools, knowledge, and methodologies to startups, consulted incubators, accelerators, corporates, foundations, and government institutions with their innovation agenda in emerging markets. And Mr. Agha Hussein has been one of the early pioneers in building a startup ecosystem in Azerbaijan. Very, very impressive background again. Mr. Agha Hussein, over to you, please. Thank you.
Mr. Aminov, dear guests, thank you very much for giving me the floor to speak about this entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial ecosystem of Azerbaijan. So just in advance, I just caught a flu a few days ago, and I'm just recovering, so apologies for my voice if it doesn't sound normal. Okay, let me share my screen and talk to you a bit more. I know my colleagues all share heavily about this e-government kind of development and an impressive work that Electronic Government Development Center is doing with regards to moving from reactive and proactive government. My part here is, as a representative for 500 Global, is to be able to support kind of SAPSI's vision and agenda in a way where they're actually able to support the development of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So on here today, I would like to cover the experiment. I would call it actually a good experiment that we've ran with SAPSI, and I'll just give more information about a partnership that we've had for this in particular. And we were thinking how we are actually able to generate this critical mass of entrepreneurs within an ecosystem, and then subsequently they can move from one stage to another and grow and build their own ventures or like startups, and then potentially scale up and become a successful companies, or even ideally exit. So that's quite a long journey. It takes like years just to establish certain infrastructural basis on top of which you are actually able to develop that talent. Of course, we as 500, we're more than 10 years in the market. We've just recently rebranded for 500 Startups to 500 Global to even reflect the even bigger vision that we have for development of these entrepreneurial ecosystems, also working with multiple stakeholders on the ground. So maybe I'll just give you briefly information about 500 Global, and then we can move to a particular case that we've run. So we are aiming to worldwide to uplift people and economies through entrepreneurship. We believe entrepreneurship is the way that the future economy will be developed, and this is kind of the right way where we can create new companies, attract more talents, and it can be a good way for a lot of people, for a huge proportion of the population, especially in the era where like the fourth industrial revolution just eliminated jobs or like to replaced by robots. So entrepreneurship is the place to go, and we are in a mission to uplift that people and economies by entrepreneurship. Of course, the platform is quite big. We have the 600 million US dollars in committed capital, and we have a portfolio of 2,500 companies, and we have investments in 77 countries across the world, and it appears that we are one of the largest and one of the most active global investors, and in particular like a pre-seed and seed stage, a very, very early stage of talent development. And just maybe some of the examples probably you've came across with some of the names you see on the slide. So we have 33 unicorns in our portfolio, meaning the valuation is more than $1 billion. And we have 120 centaurs, which is in the range of 100 million to $1 billion in valuation. So you may notice like companies like Graph, which is quite famous in GitLab, Udemy, Lucidchart, and many. Canva, for example, it's also quite famous name in this industry. So what we've tried to do in Azerbaijan, obviously, it was a really successful partnership that we've made, because on one part we have SAPSI and its innovation center, which are expertise in public policy, and at the same time we also had a private holding, Pasha Holding, which joined us as well to support this common goal. And so with expertise of 500, with expertise of SAPSI public policy, and it all together worked to meet these aspiring founders' needs, and ideally that we can develop the pool of talents. So what we've done, we've ran a program which was lasting over 21 weeks, and we've tried to bring our best knowledge and understanding of talent development across the world, and also just tailor a particular program for Azerbaijan, and also bring experienced mentorship that can support a talent development. And that was specifically catered for Azerbaijani entrepreneurs. And we also try to help them, to individuals, to actually go into a program and find themselves a co-founder that they've never met before, to be able to align around an idea that in a very short timeline, and actually launch and then deliver an MVP. There's this slide in particular is something important to pay attention, because we were running application, we were opened application for the program for 5 weeks period, and before just running this application and expecting how many people could actually apply, so what kind of would we be able to attract, we were trying to look at existing market players that were in the market for multiple years, for maybe 5-7 years in the market, and that they were particularly working on talent attraction. So we were getting a benchmark at the country's largest startup competition, and we've seen that across 7 years they were roughly attracting maybe 2,000, 2,500, so somewhere in between those number of talents, 2,000, 2,500, so somewhere in that range. And that took them 7 years to get. And what we were honestly shocked about is that in just 5 weeks, we were able to attract 1,268 applicants just in 5 weeks. It's half of the work that was done by the leading player in the market and within the 7 years. So that was and I think with this application, attracting these talents, we were able to break the notion that, that was quite common across players. Oh, we don't have talents. Talents are not interested, and we don't have a lot of pool. There has to be work. There's work to be done before. Yes, it kind of sounds reasonable because of the numbers that we had in the market, but now it seems like the reality is a bit different, where especially the younger generation of Azerbaijan, they speak multiple languages basically. So they at least every household knows more than one language. There's Azerbaijani, they probably know Turkish, or they know Russian. And younger generation now actually learns English a lot. So by learning new language, they have access to literature that is not available in a local language. And though they can get exposed themselves to entrepreneurship, hear the success stories, find the role models across the world, and by that being aspired to actually become an entrepreneur. And that was the end result of many years where people actually getting educated and learning languages and getting access to different types of materials in different languages. This was one impressive step we were able to achieve. Obviously, we have to cut down on, just narrow down to make sure we have a very selective group of people that we can move through the program and make sure that they are able to generate a minimum viable product by the end of it. This other stat I wanted to mention, this is that we were also impressed that almost half of the applicants were female applicants. We have never seen it before in any other competition. Usually it's quite male dominant place. And even if you look at the junior panels, very rarely you could see a female representation. And in this case, we've seen a massive number of applicants coming from female, and it was an impressive movement that on the right time to catch them and like see, okay, this is the trend that is going on. We have to just keep the momentum going and make sure we have like inclusive participation of both male and female in this game. So finally, we had like this 27 people that were working, they were moving across this pipeline. So if you would ask a question, how would you teach an aspiring entrepreneur who has never met the co-founder before, has very vague idea of what entrepreneurship is? How would you teach them in a way that the end result of it would be these entrepreneurs developing a minimum viable product? So we were trying to make the phased approach where, of course, we initially wanted to instill the mindset of entrepreneurship, because which is like an interesting insight here. Like entrepreneurship is a type of a word that doesn't really have an exact translation to even like in Russian or even in Azerbaijani. There's like something close to it, like, but not necessarily incorporating that whole meaning. So in some language you can say it's on ownership. Yes, it's an ownership in one part, but that's not the only thing. It's also being initiative. That's also another angle of entrepreneurship. Or being proactive. That's also a different type of being a risk, like not being afraid of taking a risk. So all of those like ideas come around this one word of entrepreneurship. And Azerbaijani language doesn't actually have an exact word that contains all of those together. We have something that is close to it. It was important for us to be able to explain them this concept of entrepreneurship, to which angles it covers and what kind of mindset a person needs to have in order to be able to strive and persevere and be able to go through many struggles that entrepreneurs face across the world. We've helped them to form their teams, especially that was an interesting part for us. The team formation is I think one of the challenging phases any program can do, because there's like certain things that you can control, like, okay, what kind of profiles you want to meet with each other, but still in the end, it's like a chemistry, like if that matches or not. So in our case, I think it was like a controlled hope, I would say, where we wanted to see if the chemistry will work, and magically it worked. There's like an invisible hand and something invisible there that really helped the team, those individuals, to form their teams. And then we start to boost them. What we call a startup booster is to basically explain like a larger framework and the order by which you have to develop. So it's more of a practical framework by which you're able to develop a startup. Is something that they acquired, and we were using different formats for it, different frameworks, which is included into the startup booster. Once this is done, obviously the first step for us was like, you have to understand your customer way before you develop any kind of product. You need to know your customer well. You need to have a lot of data, access to data. This is very, very critical. And we have seen like what that really means to work with those early first-time entrepreneurs is that there's like a notion, oh, I have to find a co-founder, technical developer, and we need to build a product right now, which is a huge fallacy. It's more like a romantic idea that I'll build something and everyone will use it, but that in fact that's not true. And then you really need to understand the customer development. And we were spending, as you see on a timeline, it's like 1 month only just to explain that customer is the most important thing you can learn about, and that's the thing that will drive the whole business through its whole life cycle. Once they understood and comprehend the idea, they've moved to the next stage where they were able to use tools to build MVPs in a very short timeline. And we're really proud to say that by the end, we've had 10 teams that are actually developed their MVPs. And it has been a while since the showcase event happened, but as of what we know right now, there have been, like, for example, there's a company called Scout. This is like 2 young individuals that they're students basically, but they already got licensed from, like, they're in this field of sports and in particular the football, but they were already able to match different talents from, let's say, far away in Russia to La Liga, like agents. Like it's just 2 students able to do like a massive work of connecting those like agents, like in the most famous like football club ever, with like some unknown talent in an unknown place. So it's a good example here. Or the Talent of the AZ example, where like just after the showcase, there's been huge interest in investing actually into these companies, and we were actually impressed. So imagine like in 21 weeks period, people don't know each other, they get in a product, they get together, they form a team, they understand their customer, they build a product and already have interest from investors. That's an impressive track record. So if that kind of mechanism could be like on a loop basically, so if you can repeat this multiple times across a few years, and that can be like this particular program, and if maybe other places as well could focus on just attracting that early aspiring entrepreneurs and then help them to transform, I think in a few years we can really skyrocket the number of entrepreneur startups in particular in the market. And then obviously in the future we can measure other metrics like how much investment is coming to the startup, the success ratio of the startup, how long they live, and etc. So it's like a whole bunch of metrics that can be measured to examine the performance of a particular entrepreneurial ecosystem. Yeah, with that said, that was my end slide. Thank you very much for listening. And if any of you are interested in this intersection of like, of course, it's a government, it also requires a lot of talent. It may be like in-house development or entrepreneurship, or it may be like external entrepreneurship, external innovation where you want to attract different startups, then definitely feel free to reach out, and I'm happy just to share some thoughts and ideas on how to support entrepreneurs and also support your internal goals. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Agha Hussein, for a very impressive presentation. And in fact, that was the gist of the your presentation, and the main idea that the synergy between the technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship, right? Like for creating an enabling startup ecosystem. I'm sure colleagues and participants found your presentation very interesting, and during our subsequent discussions, we'll get into details, and I hope you will join us, like when our participants from Kyrgyz Republic and Tajikistan will present their country contexts, and then we will just discuss our way forward in terms of what we can do in future, right, to basically to benefit from the successful experience of Azerbaijan. Just the last remark that I wanted to make, that I saw in one of the UN reports that by 2030 growth, productivity gains, and human development will be determined by level of integration in the digital economy or innovation and innovation, right? But like with what you said, like seeing your presentation, I believe that it will happen much faster, right? So in that sense, like countries need to catch up and need to expedite their work in this important area.